Now, it's time for today's perspective, and it's like reading a book that is the experience of gliding or getting sucked into the slimy, dense goo of addiction and recovery. Now, that's the description I found from the Irish Times, in fact, it was, of the guest of my guest today. The Black Pool, a Memoir of Forgetting by Tim MacGabhann, takes us across 3 continents, quite a lot of drugs as well, from early childhood through adulthood, and its author joins us here now on set. Thanks very much for coming in and talking to us today. I read another review. I said the book shows us what happens when everything falls apart. Tell us about it.
Yeah, I mean, I suppose what I wanted to do was just get to that very base voice. I mean, writers always talk about the boring bit of the book, and for me it was trying to get down to that desperate, desire-driven voice, which I think is at the core of addiction and attachment to a solution that's outside of you, basically. So, I just tried to tap into that as far as I could. I read stuff that has nothing to do with addiction and recovery, really. I read a lot of Beckett, to be honest with you, The Unnameable especially, that sort of spiralling vortex of a voice. And that's a voice that's at the very bottom of things, which has nothing, not even a body. And I would say that pretty much summarises the experience of being totally attached to substances. You know,
How did you fall into it?
Well, I was just very I think I was born missing a sort of a layer of skin that other people seem to have. You know, everything just hit a bit too hard all the time. And I was a late starter, as these things go. I was like 17, I think. You know, I broke into the drinks cabinet, and the first thing that happened was I just felt completely safe. I would say dangerously safe. I was like, this works too well, you know. And so I would say it escalated from there. College was a bit of a blur. I did pretty well in college, but everything else was a bit of a blur. And then given the situation in Ireland, 2008, 2011, the crash years basically, you had a choice. You had the drink or the despair. So I chose a mixture of both. And it just propelled me out of Ireland, and as the blurb says, across 3 continents. I ended up working as a journalist in Mexico. I was using at the time as well, so that wasn't really the whole focus of my life. And how I got out of it was just a chance encounter that the book narrates. I suppose the energy I was trying to get to was, I've written 2 novels, I published 2 novels prior to this, which were kind of thrillers, to do with things that I investigated as a journalist: organised crime, the nexus between business, political interest and crime. And my editor, Fede Andronino, he was like, well, let's see if we can bring that thriller energy to your memoir.
To your own story.
Yeah, basically, you know.
And you mentioned earlier on that it made you feel safe when you drunk. I mean, was there a point when suddenly you thought, actually, I'm not safe anymore?
Yeah, I think it's just the situations you wind up in. I remember there was one in particular I was covering in 2014. There was a handover from state police to municipal vigilantes in Tepalcatepec in Guerrero. It was a really dangerous place. And I just remember got into the town, and my first instinct wasn't to go talk to sources, it was to go look for a drink. And I ended up in this, it was an alley. It was just an alley bar. It wasn't even fully enclosed. And I was like, your priorities are out of whack, my friend, you know? So yeah, it was just more the situations that it got me into, where your compass is spiraling. So you.
And how did you get out of it then? I mean, was it basically that mindset change? Did you do it yourself, or did you have help?
It was a total chance encounter. I don't want to give too much away because, as I say, there's a thriller plot driving this wonderful memoir of mine. But it was a chance encounter after a protest. I was just sticking my head in at a protest, and it was a pretty out-of-control protest end of 2014, just quite a lot of people got chased out of the square by police, and I ended up basically trying to walk from one end of the city to the other. I ran into someone and went to my first meeting, and I think when I went into the meeting room, that feeling of bliss that I felt when I had my first drink, I had it again there. And the thing with the first drink, the first drug, you're always trying to chase that blissful initial hit. It never quite matches up. But the thing with the meetings is that every meeting since has matched that first one. So that was a pretty sustainable one.
Yeah. Do you think it would be helpful for other people who are in a similar situation to read the book? Do you think they would you think it would give them hope of how to get out of the problems that they might be having?
Yeah, I hope so. Yeah, I mean, I've heard some lovely things. It came out in May, and I remember a few weeks after it came out, my friend Maggie was on a tram, and she just finished reading it, and she ran into someone getting off the tram. They mentioned they were having an issue, and she just pulled the book out of the bag and gave it to that person. You know, so and I get messages on. I used to have social media, I don't anymore, but I used to get messages after the book came out being like, "Oh, I heard you on this interview," or "I read your book, oh, I'm thinking of giving it a try," and I'd be like, "Yeah, just..." So those are the direct ones.
Yeah.
You'd imagine that the indirect ones hopefully are a little bit, more widespread. But yeah, hopefully.
Come back hope. It sounds like, I mean, it could be a very depressing book, and I'm sure there are very depressing moments in it as well, but there's a lot of comedy as well.
Hopefully, yeah. I mean, that's the thing, like if you tell something deadpan enough, you don't even reveal the absurdity of it. You just sort of, you provide this kind of like utter logical or rational coherence out of context, and it lands really surprisingly. So I was just trying to tell things as straight as possible. So people, like, there were things that I thought were funny. People might not necessarily have laughed at. Then there's other things that I was like, "Oh, this is really moving." And others are like, "That's hilarious." So yeah, like, I guess a book is supposed to entertain. One of the weapons of its entertainment is humor. So, I'm a needy guy. I don't want people to put the book down. So every sentence is an attempt to grab the lapels. It was the same with the thrillers, but
yeah. How difficult is it been to switch from journalism, then into thrillers, now into telling your own story? I mean, it's three very different genres.
Oh, thank you. Yeah, the journalism was fun because I was doing it from when I was 18. So I was a music journalist, and that means that there's a received form. My favourite book was the style sheet. You know what I mean? So that was grand. But moving into the thriller, we had an investigation. We couldn't get to work as an article. I watched a load of thrillers. I read a load of detective novels. I read a load of screenwriting manuals. My tutor, Giles Foden at East Anglia, he's an absolute boss when it comes to getting a 3-act structure to come together. So I just sort of retconned the investigation into something people might actually want to read. And then when it came to the memoir, I worked on it with 2 editors. There was a series in the Dublin Review, a trilogy of articles, or essays rather, that became the substance of the memoir. Brendan Barrington is the guy at Dublin Review. He said, well, I'd sent him some short stories that they didn't work. They were basically someone who isn't me, but it was probably like called Tom MacGabhann or something. It was very obviously me. And he's like, why not just strip the artifice away? Don't tell it free and direct. Don't tell it third person. Just go to that baseline voice I described at the beginning of the interview, and just tell it as straight as you can, as messy as you can, and we'll go through it with a fine-tooth sandblaster and see what happens. So I guess, every process has been an inversion of the prior one. And then Fede Andronino, then when we decided to do it as a full-length book, he was like, can you try to get down into that intensity for a longer foray? And I was like, well, yeah, I guess we'll give it a shot. So I had a very unhealthy way of writing it, which was to get up while I was still very grumpy, about 5 o'clock. Yeah. And it was quite dark still, I was in Mexico at the time. And before I'd even had coffee, just try to rant onto the page for as much as I could. Then the coffee would come in. I'd go back feeling a bit better, and the editing would. So it was like,
And then it would become the book.
Yeah, it's try to replicate that intensity. And now I'm excited to just get back to making things up again, Yeah.
Well, there you go. Intense and a lot of comedy as well.
Oh, thank you very much.
Thank you very much. The Blackpool, A Memoir of Forgetting by Tim MacGabhann. Thanks very much for coming here and talking to us on the programme today.